Good morning. I'm Lars Olson, and I'll be your host for today's Quiet Echo. I want to tell you about a building in North Carolina. It sat empty for nearly 25 years. It is in a place called Swannanoa, in the western part of the state. Most people have not heard of Swannanoa. People in western North Carolina know it as the community Hurricane Helene nearly took apart in September of 2024. Last week, a hardware store opened there. I know how it sounds, but stay with me, because I think Cedar Valley needs to hear this one. Peter and Beth Ballhausen have owned Town Hardware in neighboring Black Mountain for 13 years. When they decided to open a second location, they chose the empty building at 119 Alexander Place, in the heart of Swannanoa's old downtown. The building used to house a pharmacy and a grocery store. The block it sits on was, for a long time, the place where people in Swannanoa gathered. Not to do anything in particular, just to be somewhere together. The factory town the block once served, Beacon Manufacturing, closed in 2002. The mill burned the next year. After the fire, the block went quiet, businesses closed, buildings emptied. The street where people used to stop and talk became a street people drove past on the way to somewhere else. For 25 years, Peter and Beth moved in anyway. They renovated the shell, put in the lighting, worked with their supply cooperative on the layout, stocked the shelves. They soft-opened April 8th with 9 aisles of tools and hardware and building supplies and a station for small engine repair. They hired 6 people from the community. One of them is a man named Will Hoylman. Will grew up in Swannanoa when the factory was still running. He left after a while, raised his family in Old Fort, 20 minutes away, and was gone for about 30 years. When the Ballhausens needed someone for small engine repair, he came back. He said it feels like things have come full circle. He said he can almost see the building where he had his first physical from behind the store counter. I have been thinking about Will Hoylman since I read this story. 30 years away. And something brought him back, not a program, not a policy, not an incentive. A hardware store opening on the street where he grew up. A couple who decided the block was worth something and moved in anyway. Here is what happened after the Ballhausens announced they were opening. A woman called. She turned out to be their neighbor. She was the granddaughter of the pharmacist who once ran the building. She grew up there. She gave them the clock from her grandfather's wall. The next Saturday, the granddaughter of the man who ran the grocery store drove in from Wilmington. She gave them a pickle jar. Both of those things are now on the counter. Beth Ballhausen told the reporter she tears up thinking about it. She said it makes her heart feel good to know someone could walk in to buy a box of screws, look up, and maybe recognize their parents or grandparents in one of the old photographs on the wall. Photos of the mill workers, the people who built the community. The people the community forgot for a while and is now trying to remember. I have run a hardware store in Cedar Valley for a long time. My father came from Sweden with his hands and his work ethic and not much else. He believed in the value of useful things. I grew up believing the same. When I opened the store, I told myself it was a place to get what you needed, and it is. But I know now it is also something else. People come in for a fitting and leave having said something they needed to say. They come in for advice about a project and end up sitting with something heavier they needed to think through out loud. I have had more real conversations standing behind my counter than I have had almost anywhere else in Cedar Valley. There is something about the counter, the way it gives people a place to put their hands while they talk, the way it makes a conversation feel purposeful, even when it isn't about anything practical. Peter Ballhausen said the block on Alexander Place was the central meeting place for the people of Swannanoa for a lot of years. He said it is encouraging to see a new generation of locals driving its revival. He opened a hardware store in a building vacant for 25 years, in a town still recovering from a flood, because somebody had to. And now Will Hoylman is back behind a counter he can see his old neighborhood from. And 2 granddaughters drove in from wherever they had ended up to leave something of their families on the counter of the store their grandparents once ran. Cedar Valley has its own block, its own building someone has been driving past for years. Its own Will Hoylman maybe, who has been gone a while and has not yet found a reason to come back. I do not know where those things are for Cedar Valley, but I think most people here could find them without looking very hard. I think about Mildred sometimes when I'm standing behind my own counter at the end of a slow afternoon. She has been patient with the hours this store keeps, with the way it takes more of my time than I planned for when I was young. What she has never doubted is what the store is for. She understood before I did. It was never just hardware. The building on Alexander Place had a clock on the wall once. Someone's grandfather put it there. His granddaughter still had it. She was waiting for somewhere it belonged again. That is what a gathering place is. It is the place the clock is waiting to go back to. If you know a gathering place in Cedar Valley worth saving, or a building worth reopening, the Cedar Valley News Facebook group is where the conversation can continue. Come tell us what you see. I will put the link in the show notes. This is Lars Olson, your host for today's Quiet Echo. Thanks for listening. This Quiet Echo is part of the fictional Cedar Valley News series, written by Evan Swenson, publisher, publication consultants, and Claude Marshall, AI developmental editor. While the people and town of Cedar Valley are fictional, Peter and Beth Ballhausen, Will Hoylman, Town Hardware Swannanoa, and the details described are real, as reported by Fred McCormick in the Valley Echo on April 21, 2026.
You've been listening to the Cedar Valley News Podcast, where small-town voices meet the headlines shaping our world. From faith and family to front porches and fields. We'll be back with more stories connecting real lives to real events. Until next time, keep your porch light on, your faith strong, and your heart open. This is Cedar Valley News.